Hello, this is Kilo United Zero Delta. I'm going to try to do a little video tutorial on the Yaesu FT-991 using JT65 with the JTDX software. I use Ham Radio Deluxe for the logging, and I'll try to explain a little bit about Ham Radio Deluxe and the keying features that present within. So initially you would go to Yaesu website and you will download the SCU17 USB driver, the virtual COM port. So once that is downloaded, you will make sure the USB cable is unplugged, not plugged into the PC. You'll need to go to see if yours is a 64 or a 32-bit operating system and install the correct driver within. So mine's a 64, so I'd install the CP210 installer times 64. That will install the initial setup for the drivers. That should take just a few seconds. Once that is installed and clicked OK, you will then install the USB into the PC. Once the USB is installed in the PC, it will start the driver search, and you can just let it, or you can skip obtaining drivers from Windows. Either way, it installs the right drivers, so I've done it both ways, and it takes just as long one way or the other. Wait till that's finished and you have a green check mark by both your COM ports and your audio system. So once that is installed and everything is okay, you go to your device manager and you'll see that you'll have two new COM ports. One is an enhanced COM port used for rig control. The other is a standard COM port that used for keying. Under the enhanced COM port settings, 38.4 is what you'll want to put in for your rig control. 38.4, 8, none, and 1. Under the standard COM port, we're going to leave that at default for the radio, so you'll need 4800, 8, none, and 1. And you can close that. That means the COM port and the PC part is set. So next, go to your Playback Devices in your sound mixer, and you'll be looking for a USB audio codec. You'll open that. I renamed mine to make it easier to find when selecting in an application. So I use mine Yaesu device out. That's from your PC out to your radio. The level on the FT-991, I just put it at 100, and then I used the slider on the JTDX software to control the output. You want to go to your advanced tab, put 16-bit 48,000 hertz DVD quality for the format. You'll want to make sure that you select this device as your default device when using your Yaesu and JTDX. You'll need that checked as a default so it knows where to find it. Under microphone, you'll look for USB audio codec under your microphone. I've renamed mine also Yaesu device in, so I know which one's in, which one's out. In from radio, out from PC. So under advanced, 2-channel 16-bit 48,000 hertz DVD quality is one you want to check. Your levels, I keep mine about 75 on the FT-991. Every rig is different, and I'm going to say the FTDX 3000 is just the opposite. That you need to move down to about 3, and I will do a different video on the 3000. But for this video, we're going to keep it at about 75. Next, you'll want to bring up your menu on your FT-991. I've made a list of menus that I've changed with Ham Radio Deluxe and JTDX. So these are all I have to change to be able to use Ham Radio Deluxe with the FT-991, with CW, RTTY, and JTDX with JT65. Menu 31 is the COM rate with the PC, which we have changed, and that is your enhanced COM port 38.4. CW number 54, out level is at 20. That's the audio volume from radio to PC in CW mode. Number 60, PC keying, DTR, COM line for keying in CW. 62, data mode is others, PSK or others. You'll want to make sure others is checked, selected in that. Number 64, other DSP, 1500 hertz is a good starting point, and I found it works rather well right there, so I tend not to change that. Number 65, other shift, 1500 hertz. It's a 1.5 kilo offset. Number 71, data PTT select is RTS. The COM line for PTT in data mode. So when your FT-991 is in USB data mode, your RTS, it will be looking for that for keying. Number 72, data mode port, you want to select USB. Where to take audio and PTT while in your data mode. Number 73, data out level, I found that 20 is a pretty good point, and I've never had any reason to have to change that. That is the audio volume from the radio to the PC while in data mode. Number 98, RTT shift port. That's the shift port, RTS, port for SFK keying while in RTT mode. Number 101, RTT out level at 20. Audio volume from radio from PC in RTTY mode. 119, single sideband out level 20. Audio volume from radio to PC while in single sideband mode. 110, single sideband PTT select RTS, COM line from radio in PC while in SSB mode. 111, single sideband port select USB, where to take the audio and PTT in SB mode. I've used the FT-991 both in upper sideband and in USB data mode. I've used it both, and you can play with the levels and pretty much get the same outcome in both. So I just use the 3000 with the data mode. So in Ham Radio Deluxe, I know I'm moving kind of quickly, but we need to get through this so this doesn't turn out to be an hour-long video. After you have changed those menu settings in your FT-991, Ham Radio Deluxe will come up with a screen that looks like this. You'll go ahead and choose your FT-990 or 991A. RTS, request to send, which you set up initially in your FT-991, and your enhanced COM port, which is the 38.4, which you have set up previously, and you would click connect. You can see Ham Radio Deluxe is connected, so when I turn the dial, that take the lock off the radio, turn the dial, that Ham Radio Deluxe does shift with the VFO on the radio, so we know we are communicating and all is good there. You bring up DM780 and click on Program Options, Modes and IDs, and under the CW tab, you'll want to enable serial COM port keying. Before, when we set up the standard COM port, which was my COM3, which is the for keying, the standard COM port, not the enhanced, and we set up that to DTR initially earlier. And that's all you have to do for the CW tab. Under the RTTY tab, all right, under the RTTY tab, you'll enable FSK keying your standard COM port, your request to send, which you have set up under RTTY. As you can see, whoop, I already closed that out. So we'll bring it back up here quick. So as you can see, the RTTY RTTS number 98. So that's where that's at. And you'll check the Yaesu SCU17 FTDX 3991 for the RTTY. Under PTT, while in CW or RTT mode, Y mode, I'm going to use Ham Radio Deluxe and let it key. It's a lot simpler, and you're already connected to it, so why not just make everything easier and use that. Under radio, sound card, here's where you select your input and output of your sound. You can see we already set it up earlier, and it's easier to find, and this is why that I have the Yaesu device in USB audio codec, and then my out, Yaesu device out, USB audio codec. That's all you need to do in that. I'm not going to go ahead and do any RTTY today, but just I will probably do another segment on just RTTY and Ham Radio Deluxe, and we're just going to keep it a little bit simple for today. I'm going to go ahead and close this out. So under Ham Radio Deluxe, under the Logbook, I'm not going to show you how to set up Logbook. You should be able to do that, but once your Logbook is set up, you'll have it here, and you can see I've already made logs, but in JT Alert, you can set up Ham Radio Deluxe to do your logging for you, or if you have a different logging program. But Ham Radio Deluxe, you have to use 2.87 or below. 2.9 and above does not support Ham Radio Deluxe and logging. So in the JTDX website, I'll put a link in the comment section. 17.7 no longer has the slider. You'll adjust your audio input through your Windows level. And you'll see here that I still have 17.61 or 17.61 I still have installed here. So I still have the slider, and either one works just as fine. It's just the way you set it up. So under JTDX, I have JT Alert simultaneously working with JTDX, but for installation purposes, we're going to go ahead and open your Windows Explorer, click on View, your options, change folder. Under View, make sure Show Hidden Files and Folders is checked. So you'll install JTDX, and under the first use, you'll be in the settings. That is where you'll put in your call sign and your grid. You can, a lot of this is just user selectable. I have a blank line, which is this here, a blank line in between each session. Each session lasts roughly 1 minute, and it transmits for 47 seconds and decodes for the other 13. So this is all just, I double click. So as soon as I double click it, it enables the TX, which is here, and it disables after the last on 73. Under the radio, we're going to click RTS, which you have set up earlier in for your data port. Select RTTS, that's your comm line for while in data mode, and your standard COM port. I do not use rig control. Others can. You guys can and play with that, but that would be under, if you didn't have Ham Radio Deluxe and wanted to use this as your rig control also, that would be your enhanced COM port on this side. I might play with that someday, but just for this purpose here, your audio would be the Yaesu device in that we have selected earlier, and your device out from PC to radio, and that's where you set your level and your slider here. The input you'll slit here. A good starting point is to have this around 30 with no when not sending or receiving. And the rest is just reporting, your notification, your colors. That's all user selectable. And once that's set up, it's pretty ready to go. Under the JT alert, you will install that. There's a link here, the JT alert software, which will bring you to Ham apps. And if you're using Ham Radio Deluxe, you want to use the old version. And if you're using another logging software, you can use 2.91 and newer, or when they come out with something newer. And then you'll want to download the call sign database, so Ham Apps knows what call signs and how to work that. Once that downloaded and installed, I'm just going to go. This has so many settings and different things to do that it's best for each individual to figure that out. That would be a whole video tutorial in itself. But under the settings, I'm just going to show you that manage settings. Under logging, since I use Ham Radio Deluxe, you want to check that. Enable Ham Radio Deluxe 6 if you're using 6, or there's still the old free version 5. And then in this drop down box, it'll automatically come up that your logbook, you collect that, select that, and it automatically is ready to log right into Ham Radio Deluxe. Just applications. Oh, auto start. I have it pointed to the JTDX executable. So when I start JT alert, JTDX starts all one simultaneous button. And I have it docked on top, as you can see. So wherever I move this, it's always on top, and it's it does pretty good. So under your decode history window, somewhere in here is where you do the scan of your logbook, and it can scan your initial logbook and already see how many JT65 QSOs you have and who it is, so it can display that correctly. That's all I'm gonna. Yeah, the scan and update. That's where you scan your logbook, and we're just gonna leave that for now. So you know when this is all set up correctly, it knows you on 20 meter. Ham Radio Deluxe is the logbook, and number 1 is the which version of the JT65 software you're using. You can use, there's 2 or 3 different JT65 software you can use for that. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this for a minute, and then we're going to go into the rig and see what we can find there. When you first run JTDX, it will then make a folder in your C, your user, application data, local, under JTDX. That is where you have to download this call3 text file that comes separate with JTDX, and you'll want to extract that into this folder here. This is where your log resides. This is where JTDX logs, and then it'll log an ADA file for you can import into your own log if that's the way you want to do it. I have mine automatic log, so it just makes things a lot better. And then this keeps track of all the QSOs and your input, all your QSOs, and or actually everything that comes on the screen of JTDX, all your decodes. That's a better word to say it. All your decodes, your so if something happened to your log file, and you could always come back to here and do a search, and you can find when you made the QSO with who and when and what band and everything else. So that's a good file to always save back up in case of I always back up the alt text, my log, whenever I install a new version. And then that way you can put them back in there and without having to lose any of your data. Just on to go over again, your call sign, your grid, the blank line, and then your radio, RTS, standard COM port, audio, device in, device out, and it's pretty much ready to go again. Use this slider, put your FT-991 on ALC, and you'll use this slider so you have max power of your setting with no ALC. I will conclude this portion, and I will hook up the audio so I can make a QSO and show you how I set up the radio to actually decode, and we'll make a QSO. So all our menu settings on our FT-991 are all set. So you go to F list, and then a couple little things here. Your DNR, DNF need to be off. If it sounds like you're underwater in a bubble bath and the JT65 sounds funny, you have one of those on, so make sure those are off. And your width, 3000. That's going to give you your width in up here up to 3000. You'll notice that some can go farther, and I know the 991, when you start getting between 26, 27, it will not transmit into the 3035. You'll have to move the 14077, 0765, 078 to be able to get up into that. And you'll do that with your VFO. And that's just the nature of the beast. And a little tech tip that if you try to get a JT9 QSO and you can't get no output for the radio, that's why. You'll have to stop. You'll have to put it on 140765 or 14077, wait for it to decode again, and then this will actually move down a little bit so into your range where you can transmit. It will not transmit up into there. If anybody else knows of a way to be able to get it to do that, put it in the comment section. I'd like to be able to hear it, but for right now it does not transmit up that far. So the waterfall, you can see there's open spots when it's real busy, and then this guy's got a little bit of power and ALC overdriven, and it will distort your audio and make all kinds of bad things happen in the JTDX, and that's just what we have to deal with. And so your ALC and your overdrive really makes a difference, because you can see here which good signals, and then we have these, and that's just part of what we have to deal with. I have mine shrunk down here to 35, and you'll control that here. You move that down to 2 and it'll widen that out, and put it on flatten, cumulative. That's where I got, and that's just your waterfall settings here. That increases or decreases your signal strength, and this one is the waterfall background. So anyway, back to the 991. This is what I use to control the output power on the FT-991, and then you don't have to do it in your windows. So once again, keep this around 30 with no transmit or receive on your slider, and then you do the same thing on the new 17.7. I think you'll want to put that about 50. I found where you don't get errors in that, and that you would have to do that in your Windows slider. That's with version 17.7 of the JTDX. So I'm going to go ahead after this round, find a little spot here that you don't want to transmit back on somebody else like that, because you're transmitting right on top of them, and that's just bad etiquette. And sometimes you do it, it happens where you don't hear the other signal, and then all of a sudden on the next pass it comes in, and that's just unavoidable. But it's just right etiquette not to land on somebody on purpose, I guess is the way to say it. So we're just going to go a little blank spot here, click on CQ, enable. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm in a little blank spot here. I'm going to go ahead and click on CQ, enable text. I'm going to go on the odd. So as you can see, my slider, as you can see, I have ALC, and use this slider and you can make it go up or down. So use the slider until your ALC just disappears. And you might have to go back up and down, but you want to get it so you have max power from what your setting is, and bring that so it just disappears. As the FT-991 heats and cools, that changes. So that's why I have it hooked up to the slider, so I can easily move it up, move it down to make sure I have max output power. and no ALC. That's the trick. Alright, now for the radio. Under the radio, you're going to want to go to the correct band, but in your mode, you're going to have data USB. And then under the F list, if we click the F list, I have mine on preamp 2. Your DT gain, I set mine at 16, and you'll see we'll use the slider in JTDX, and we'll set your ALC according in there. We'll have 3K for the width, 3000. DNR, DNF always off, no attenuator. And I think that's just about it for the radio. So it's pretty straightforward. So at 14076, that's our band, our mode, data USB, F list, 16 at the mic gain. You might want to go down a little bit because your mic gain will influence your ALC, and you want to keep that ALC way out of the red. No attenuator, no DNR, no DNF. If it sounds funny, look at your DNR and DNF, because that will indicate that if it sounds like it's under bathwater, you'll know that one of those two is checked. So here's JTDX. You want to make sure settings, blank line, put the line in between each session. Radio, RTS, COM3, audio, your input and output device from your PC, and the rest is just user selected. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a blank spot up here. You don't want to go on top of somebody else and transmit, because then you're just meshing in with them, and it makes it difficult for other people to be able to decode. So I'm going to go ahead and call CQ on this. You want to click CQ here. I got DX checked, so it's going to be CQ DX here, and I'm just going to enable TX. So now, as you can see, my ALC's up there, so I use the slider here and bring the ALC down, and use the slider where you have max output and no ALC on the 991. In JTDX, you can use user where you have the user that you already logged before in CQ, set up different colors for different countries. This is a DXX wanted list, and it's just a really great piece of software that runs simultaneously with JTDX. That's just once you use it, it just works together the same. So if somebody replies to you, you'll be able to see them if you have your waterfall set up correctly right underneath. So I'm using bins fix 05 because if this was all the way across, you set this at 3 and you'll be able to see the scale up to 4,000. And you'll mess with these settings to get your waterfall working correctly, to be able to display, so you can you'll play with that, and you'll see, you know, with the noise level that, you know, it'll be all blue or even yellow with even more noise, but you want to set it so you can see your waterfall. So I have it set up where this, with this color, when I see black, and this here tells you somebody got you, double click on it, automatically put you in the call. So now we're replying back to W7. We'll just bear that out, gray that out later. We're replying back to him. So Still no ALC. Still full power, but I will mention this, that the 991, as it warms up, your power output will drop and you'll have to adjust your slider up a little bit more. See, a little bit of ALC, just drop it down just a hair, get rid of it till you have full output power. But as it warms up, you'll have to keep adjusting that, and when it cools off you'll notice it'll go back up again. So it's just it's nice to have the slider here instead of trying to do it in your windows there. So, and he's coming back to us now, so you can see that he's right underneath. That's when it's right underneath the beginning part there, that's when you know that you got someone that's on the same bandpass and he's replaying back to you. So yeah, out of all the JT65 software, this is probably one of my favorites. After this QSO here, I'll show you how we set the time. Your time has to be right on, because it's every minute, every 50 seconds. So every minute, 47 seconds it stops, as you can see. So he came back. So now I'm just going to 7-3 him. It's going to automatically put a 7-3, and it's automatically going to log for me. So I can put his name in here. I'm not going to right now, because I usually look him up, QRZ, put his name, and then you log it, and then it'll come back and say I've logged it. So he logged into Radio Deluxe, all in one big sweeping swoop. So that's going to conclude my little tutorial on using JTDX. The ALC is the important, so you're not overdriving and overpowering and, you know, really making havoc on the JT65 band. But this is a very good, very good weak signal. When the bands are bad, you can always use JT65 and still get a QSO overseas, next door, or whatever. But this is Kilo United Zero Delta, and I'm going to conclude this video, and hopefully it helps some users out. And have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. Thank you.